So last year, I hit up a thrift store down in Bellevue, Nebraska, and there were all these pretty good records for a thrift store. And I started recording. Didn't really notice this one at first, but after looking it up on Discogs, I was blown away by how valuable it was. And obviously the thrift store looked it up as well because they're selling it as is for $50. But I couldn't resist grabbing this record. I don't know what it is about physical media, but to me, there's something really sacred about it. When I go to a thrift store and see a VHS tape that has mold on it, it really hurts my heart. Same thing with a cassette tape, and especially vinyl records. If they're scratched where they can't be played back, or they're warped so badly that there's really no hope of being able to fix them, it hurts my heart and my soul to see something like this happen to physical media. And when I caught wind of my friend Chris having a record pie, I knew that I had two records in my collection that I really wanted to try to rescue. Now, one of them I could play back no problem, but it had a bad warp. The other one, most of the record was unplayable. So I want to put this record pie to the test, use it firsthand to determine if I want to invest in one of my own, and maybe help you determine if you want to invest in one as well. So let's dive in and see if the record pie can save two very important records in my collection. All right, so we have a challenge for the folks at Record Pie. I have a couple of records that have different degrees of warping. One record is worth around $300, and it's a rare soul funk record I got. It's from the early 70s. I picked it up at a thrift store. Now, I paid $50 for it, and this record has some really strange warps. Now, when I inspected the record at the thrift store, I did not see any warping on it, but again, it's relatively dimly lit, and it's difficult to see some of these very small warps that it had from some heat exposure. Playback was impossible except for the second half of the record, and I really wanted to figure out whether or not the record pie could save it. So I'm going to be working on that record, and then there's a second record I'm working on. It's the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour original master recording. And that one has a pretty good lift on it. It plays back no problem, but it definitely lifts and has some issues there. So I'm going to take one of the most basic record warps that a lot of us see and see if the record pie fixes it. But we've got a big challenge for record pie. I borrowed this from my friend Chris, who I think paid $350 for this unit. I've never used one before. It's my first time doing it. So I'm really excited to see what it can do to save a $300 record and a record that's worth maybe $75 to $100 with the Beatles record. If it does work, then I'm going to take some of the other records that I have that have minor little lifts or other little slight warp issues, and I'm going to run it through to see if I can get those fixed. So let's take a look at the first record that we're going to work on and see whether or not the record pie can fix it. All right, so let's take a look at what this lift looks like. It's a pretty pronounced warp, but it doesn't really affect playback. Listen. You say yes, I say no, you say stop. So this is the instant replay. You can see that lift. It's most pronounced when you're playing it only on one side. So we're going to see if Record Pie can knock it out. For those of you who might be hoping that this is a step-by-step tutorial for how to use the Record Pie, it is not that. There is a video on the Record Pie website and their YouTube channel that you can watch that I watched to set this up. So I'll link that down in the description. But right now I'm getting that first record set up, and it's a very easy setup process once you read through the instructions and watch the video. There's a couple little details that they leave out, but it's relatively easy to get. I do show this as being set to 125 degrees, but the first time I ran it, I actually had it set to about 112 degrees and I ran it overnight. So we'll see if overnight and a long cool down gets that record warp fixed. All right, so the first bake in the Record Pie is complete. So I'm going to take the record out, going to inspect it, and then I'm going to put it on the turntable so you can see the difference between what it was before and what it is after. I am looking at this, and it's honestly hard to tell. It still looks like it has a little bit of a lift on it, that it's not perfectly flat, but the real test will be over on the turntable. We'll see the before and after. Now, it's entirely possible. The temperature at 112 degrees Fahrenheit, it's just not warm enough. So I need to up the temperature and do this multiple times until I get the results that I'm hoping for. So this could take multiple applications, but I'll put this on the turntable. We'll see what it looks like. So we definitely still have a lift on the record after treating it at 112 degrees Fahrenheit. So I am going to do it again. We'll up the temperature. Maybe we'll just do the recommended 125 degrees and then let it run for, I don't know, like 8 hours and see what happens. Because this lift is very minor, but it's enough that I want to try to eliminate it entirely. So we're throwing it back in the record pie. I'm going to let it go, like I said, about 8 hours. And let's see how it turns out on the other side. All right, my fellow vinyl lovers, it is time to take out the Beatles record and see if the second treatment got that pretty good warp out of it. Now, something that was important to me to do before I put the records in to get flattened and heated up, I wanted to make sure that they were clean. So I used the record solution that I make myself with 90+% isopropyl alcohol, distilled water, and a little bit of Dawn dish soap to thoroughly clean the records before I put them in the record pie. All right, let's see how it plays back. It's looking pretty good to me. I don't really see any warp at all, guys. After the second treatment, maybe just the tiniest tiny little bit. Now, during the original playback of the warp to test how bad it was more pronounced when the record was on one side. So I flipped the record over and you can still see just a touch of a lift on the record. But for the most part, this record pie has knocked out about 90% of the warp. I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with this second treatment. I flipped the disc over, treat it again for 18 hours, let it do a really long cool down. And from everything I can tell, that record is fixed. So the next record that I have is a pretty rare one called Space Arc. And just to recap, everyone, I picked this up for $50 at a thrift store here in the Omaha area. I couldn't tell that it was warped, but when I brought it home, you can see all of those little ripples in the record. You could see from the video that I played of the warp on this that it's pretty bad. The needle jumps, it's all over the place. So this one needs some real work to save it. But if I could save this record, it would be pretty cool. So I'm going to put it on the record pie, let it run all the way through tomorrow, and then let it cool down into Friday, and then see if it gets fixed. One of the things I really liked about the record pie was I felt like it really was made well. It has high quality materials. Nothing felt cheap or chintzy about it to me, and it seems like the people who made it really do care. Okay, so I've got the Space Arc record all done in the record pie. I didn't go as long as I did the other record, the Beatles record. I upped the temperature from 112 to 125. I was like, let's just send it, figure out if this is going to work. So I think it ran for 12 plus hours, and then it's been cooling off since, I don't know, like 7 or 8 o'clock last night. And right now it's almost 9 o'clock in the morning. So I think it's had plenty of time to cool down. I'm going to take it out, test it on the record player and see if it worked out. Let's hope it did. All right, moment of truth. Something about this feels better to me. I don't know. There's something about it that feels improved. I think this might be good. We'll see. Still looking a little warped on the edge. Let's give this another shot. Pretty bad on the edge. I can see it's very, very messed up. Maybe it won't skip. All All right, look, I know it's still skipping, but this is a huge improvement from what it was. So I think what's going to happen is I'm going to have to do another session. So I want to do the Space Arc record again, but I want to flip it over to the other side this time. I'm really amazed at how improved the Space Arc record is. It was really bad. And while it's still bad, it's not as bad as it used to be. And I'm wondering if multiple applications could get this across the finish line so that it plays smoothly again. There's still more work to do, and I'm going to put Space Arc back on the Record Pi and run it at 125, flipped over on the other side for the rest of the day. I think when these companies market their products, it's easy for us to think, oh, we just throw it into this heated envelope and in an hour we have a completely fixed record. It doesn't work like that, at least in my experience. These records took multiple sessions of 12 plus hours. So that's something that you'll really have to get used to when you start using the Record Pi. Round 2 with Space Arc is complete. And I've had it cooling down for 8 or so hours now. And I think that's going to be enough to take it out and test it to see if the second round at 125 degrees Fahrenheit for well over 12 hours, if that's going to, with the record flipped over, if that's going to do it. So let's put it on the turntable and see if there's any improvement. Well, it looks way better. All right, so I flipped Space Arc over and tried the other side. And I used to have to put the needle halfway into the record to be able to play any of the music without any skips. Now, only the first half of the first song is unplayable. The second half of the first song is playable. It's not skipping. So I think the evidence is clear. The $200+ that you're going to spend on the Record Pi, I think if you are someone that either has a lot of warped records from a collection that you bought, or you're someone that wants to go out and find warped records and try to work with the person selling them to get a really great deal on them, knowing you can bring them back to the Record Pi and fix them, I think that's a really good way if you're a record investor, a record collector, or someone who also sells records to be able to get records very inexpensively. Now, here's the other burning question. I don't own this. I borrowed this from a friend. Would I, in my current circumstances, invest in one to have on hand? I struggle a little bit because I rarely encounter warped records. I want to see how this video performs, see what kind of feedback I get from all of you, and just kind of sit with it for a while before I decide to have one in my studio. Now, you might be wondering, how do I buy this thing? If you want to purchase the Record Pi, you can do it at the Record Pi website, and I'll have a link to that down in the description. And I'm also going to put a link to Turntable Lab They're a website that sells a lot of record equipment, but the Record Pi is available there. Definitely check both sites to make sure you're getting the best deal. If there's a promo code or something that you're able to find, do all that stuff. Now, these links that I'm including at the time of making this video, they are not affiliate links. So I don't earn a commission or any kind of kickback if you end up purchasing one, but I would love for you to do me a favor. If this video inspires you to purchase the Record Pi, drop a comment down below that you purchased it and where you purchased it, if it was on the Record Pi website or on the Turntable Lab website. That's really good information for me to use to get in touch with different brands that might be selling products that I'm interested in testing, or showing all of you what kind of results I get. I wasn't able to hear back from Record Pi if they have an affiliate program, or Turntable Lab, which I think they do, but they weren't able to get back to me. And that's okay. No big deal. But use those links in the description. Drop a comment if you end up buying one. And I'd really appreciate it. Now, here's another idea. What if you have a group of vinyl collectors in the same area and you all chipped in to buy one, and then had maybe a central location, or had like a schedule where each of you maybe had it for a week out of the month, and you did all your records at one time? Maybe that's the better option, where everyone goes in on a Record Pi and you just are really good about communicating and sharing it without anybody having it for too long or anything like that. Definitely get subscribed. If you're worried about like emails or a subscription costing you anything, it doesn't cost you anything at all. And I'm not going to email you, nothing weird like that. It's just a way for you to get the videos that I make in your feed when you're logged into YouTube. That's all I've got for this one. I am stoked that this worked, and that Chris let me borrow it. Chris, if you're watching, thanks, dude, for letting me borrow the Record Pi. I know I've had it for a long time, and I'm going to get it back to you ASAP. So thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next one. Something interesting just developed. I was at Canesville Collectibles, and a collection came in of some really cool metal and hard rock records, and they had been stored in a garage flat for a long time. And a lot of them have some really bad warping. Now, most of them are sort of like that dish warping that you get. I think that's the right term. But then this Led Zeppelin 4 that I have has a pretty bad edge warp. It's not the Ripley kind. It's more like it was maybe stored on its side and it just lipped in a little bit. So I'm going to run these records through the Record Pi and save those. And I will come back in a second video to follow up with whether or not all these records got fixed by the Record Pi. I'm overdue giving this back to my friend Chris, so I need to do these all quickly and in succession. But I think because they're relatively simple warps, that just one session each record, I hope, should do it. Got a couple videos here you guys might want to check out. One where I find a $500 45 at the thrift store for just a couple of bucks. And another where I picked up these really, really rare shoegaze band t-shirts from my buddy. We were both at an estate sale. It's a really cool story. Definitely check those out.